This is the biggest port strike since the 1970s. What does it mean for consumers, and what does it mean for our industry, trucking and logistics? First, what does it mean for consumers? Well, the news covers it widely because we're all worried about shortages of supplies. Will we run out of toilet paper? Will we run out of water? The answer is probably, if it lasts too awful long. The good news is not every port is closed, and the biggest retails in our country have already prepared for this eventuality, and they've got stockpiles lined up for months ahead. So take that as you will. There's some good news and there's some bad news. So now let's focus on our industry, trucking and logistics, specifically the things that are affecting our customers here at Bennett. Well, hey there, I'm Kris Rzepkowski, Vice President of hold on, I used to be marketing communications. I'm a different guy now. Hey everybody, I'm Kris Rzepkowski, Vice President of Corporate Business Development at the Bennett Family of Companies. A new role for me. I've transitioned from our marketing group and talking about all the great things that Bennett does as a company. And now in a business development role, my job is to help you navigate a little bit of what Bennett does for a living and how we contribute to helping shippers solve complex logistics problems. I'm your guide. I'm going to help you navigate the complexities and ultimately help you find the individuals at Bennett that can help you solve those problems. So, today we jump right into a topic that is top of the news and affecting our industry, and it's the International Longshoremen's Association strike on the East Coast ports and Gulf ports in North America. A really significant event in the news, and we have an expert here that is Tricia Reynolds. She's the Vice President of Bennett International Transport, our freight forwarding operation. I had a chance to sit down with her for a little while this afternoon. We're on the third day of the strike here, and just to get her perspective in the freight forwarding world about how people are adapting to the strike, what it means for our industry and for shippers, and ultimately what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. So let's dive into that topic just a little bit, see if I can help navigate the issue. So the Longshoremen strike started on October 1st of 2024. It is definitely causing significant disruption. About 85% of our international business comes through these ports. It's a little scary, honestly, but the ports include Port of New Jersey and New York, Port of Savannah, where a lot of container ships come into this country, Port of Charleston, Port of Norfolk, Port of Miami, where a lot of import cargo comes in, Port of Jacksonville, so all up and down the East Coast, and then it rounds the bend out into the Gulf ports. One of the more significant ones for us at Bennett is the Port of Houston, where just a ton of traffic comes into, and we transload and do a lot of work with the Houston ports. Not every single port is affected. Some ports aren't served by the union, and aren't affected. Like we have our oil and gas business out of Port Fourchon down in Louisiana currently is unaffected by this. So it's definitely a fluid closure, but the vast majority of the ports as of today are currently shut down because the folks that work those ports, the international longshoremen, the individuals that load the containers, crane them off of the ships, load them onto trucks, manage the inflow and outflow of traffic to the port. Those are the individuals that are on strike. So it kind of brings transport and shipping to its knees. That's sort of the intention when you're a union that wants to renegotiate a contract. They're looking for changes in pay. They're looking for changes in automation. Quite frankly, they don't want automation because they believe that'll put people out of work. So that's the situation we're in. I thought Tricia did an interesting discussion about how our shippers and large businesses across the country prepared for this eventuality. It's not like it's new that we have labor unions at the ports. So I was heartened to hear that some of the biggest businesses in this country have been preparing for this almost for 3 months now. And they've been rerouting their shipments to West Coast ports. They've been changing their delivery schedules to combat this eventuality, but it really came to a head in the last couple of weeks. The largest shippers bombarded the ports quickly to try to get all their shipments taken care of, and the steamship lines getting their ships offloaded before the strike hit. So the last couple of weeks have been frenetic, and it's caused a lot of interesting snarls in trucking, especially. So when all of those containers flooded the port, then they had to have a rush to get them offloaded. So the truckers all now have empty containers, and they can't bring those empty containers back to the port. The steamship lines and the ports just won't allow them back in. So now you're in this weird situation where nobody can really export. They can't turn around the equipment, and you have truckers that are in the business of moving these containers, and they're kind of at a standstill right now. So it's already creating a ripple effect this week, and it's going to have an effect over the next few days. Big businesses were far more prepared than small businesses. Tricia was mentioning just the ability for a small business to be able to adjust their entire supply chain, change their orders, work with carriers and agencies like ourselves to make those changes. It just wasn't possible. So the big boys, the Walmarts, the Costcos, they have these large engines that can make some more significant shifts, but the small businesses are really going to be affected over the coming weeks. Really, the question is, well, what should you do about it? We're a week in, and you got to wonder, what can you do to handle your supply chain when you've got a port strike going? And the first thing is, believe it or not, just to wait. And that's not really monumental advice, but it is the fact that we're all hoping for a pretty short strike, that the government and the union can figure this out quickly, and that we can ultimately get some resolution. And so for every day of this strike, or every week of this strike, we expect about a day, in the case of a day, or a week of delay after the fact. So the shorter the strike, the shorter the ripple effects and delays. So if you're a shipper that's currently, has things that you need to move into this country, the one answer is to just wait a little bit. Just hold on if you can, if it doesn't dramatically affect your business, that's a tall tale, but it's certainly one that we would suggest. The next idea is to try to figure out how to split. Can you reroute some of your shipment to a different port that's not under strike right now? The West Coast was a good choice, and that was certainly where a lot of organizations gave emphasis in the early part of this preparation. But now we're finding that there's shortages of chassis, trucking, rail cars coming out of the West Coast. So the West Coast will deliver, it will just deliver delayed. So you pick your poison. Do you risk an East Coast port where it might not get delivered at all, or do you take it out west and at least guarantee shipment, but it might have some delays because of supply chain backup? So splitting shipments is a good thing. Basically trying to build more lead time. So we want to build more lead time right now into your production schedule. Again, it seems kind of obvious, but if you're a shipper with a production line that is expecting freight from China and you expect a 10-week turnaround on those goods being produced, you need to build in more like a 14-week schedule or a 15-week, 20-week schedule. Try to make sure you're giving yourself enough lead time on the front end of the needs of these goods coming into the country to account for these this delay and backlog. So there's already ships that were scheduled that are floating around the East Coast right now, sort of, you'd call it offshore storage, if you will. They're just sitting there waiting to be unloaded. That's very unfortunate for businesses. If you can avoid that situation where your critical goods are just floating around out there, all the better. So try to adjust your schedule accordingly. I guess that's really the crux of it. It's a very important thing to pay attention to in the news. For all of our customers at Bennett, we recommend that you continue to stay in close contact with contacts like Tricia and our entire international transport unit. Also talk to your flatbed, open deck, brokerage contacts to understand how the port closures are going to affect your inbound shipments. It will have weird ramifications whether or not the port you're using is actually closed or not. As I said, there's going to be trucker shortages in different areas, and the best thing to do is consult an expert at Bennett to understand how you're going to be affected over the coming weeks. I just say the last thing on this is to just keep your eye on the news. Make sure that you're following the media to understand what things are happening, the progress of the negotiations, when the ports will be opened, and any other suggestions. One of the things that can happen is the steamship lines may end up rerouting the freight to other ports that weren't the original intention. So if your shipment ends up in Norfolk, Virginia, or on the West Coast and it was meant for New York, that can obviously have huge ramifications. You have to send trucks out there to bring it from that port to the location that you were looking for. So I think we as an industry are all praying for progress and fast resolution to this problem. We'll pray for the for the folks that are doing the negotiations, both from the union side and also for our government for bringing the right solutions to bear to be able to get this resolved quickly. That's our issue for today. I hope I helped you navigate just a little bit. You can always reach out to me and I can get you to the right resource at Bennett to consult on any of the issues that you might be facing in your supply chain, and let's see if we can solve it together, because together we can move anything.